So the Carolina Panthers have fired head coach Frank Reich, and this hit me out of left field. And to be honest, it probably hit me out of left field with brass knuckles on. I think this was probably one of the least expected things that I expected to see on my timeline this morning. Full transparency, before I record this video, I just packed up my entire recording setup. I saw this move and I unpacked it to talk about it. And this is a live raw reaction. I don't have much details. There aren't much details. This news came out about 15 minutes ago as I'm recording this. But I just want to go through the timeline, thinking about how everything transpired with head coach Frank Reich. And honestly, over the summer, I had the pleasure of going to their training camp, seeing Bryce Young, seeing Frank Reich, Brian Burns, seeing those guys up close and personal. But I think coming into this, from one, you're now a 1-10 football team. You're the first team in the NFL this season to eclipse 10 losses. I think when you look at that, first off, that's just not good football. And what we saw is kind of a transition of power. Or we say, okay, we hand the play calling duties over to Thomas Brown, the offensive coordinator over from the Los Angeles Rams. We take back the play calling. When we take back the play calling, we're struggling offensively. And I think it comes down to Bryce Young. I was never truly sold from day one that Bryce Young was Frank Reich's guy. You hear how Josh McCown talks about the CJ Stroud. This is taking us way, way back. We talk about the draft where Josh McCown did the film breakdown. You got all of these representatives at CJ Stroud's pro day. Even with the draft combine, I said, okay, that's who I felt they would pick. And lo and behold, CJ Stroud playing football the way he is right now. What is this, the NFL? What does that stand for? Not for long. When you have a guy being so successful, so fast, and then you have the converse with Bryce Young struggling. I'm not out on Bryce Young. I don't think Bryce Young is fully equipped with the weapons and the offensive line play in front of him to fully assess what this guy can be for the future of his career. Yes, it's okay. It's fair to say CJ Stroud is playing better right now. But when we say Bryce Young is a bust, I think that's going way too far. But when we pair that in with Frank Reich, like I said, I think that Bryce Young was never truly his guy. So we already have some of that tension building. We think about David Tepper, how happy he was to get a guy like Bryce Young, and they felt that even with the undersized, he had the ability with the playmaking extension to elevate some of these guys. Now, I think with the process, we still got to look at the front office. We don't have to scapegoat Frank Reich entirely because couple of decisions that were made. We pay a guy like Miles Sanders. He's getting a pretty good contract for a running back. And think about it, Chuba Hubbard, now he's coming in getting more snaps and carries than a guy like Miles Sanders, who we just paid. Brian Burns, he's not paid yet. He's still on the table. And we think about him, is he a low-end one tier? Is he a low-end one edge rusher? Is he a high-end one edge rusher? What do we want to categorize him as? I think that's another conversation for another day. But it's a lot of decisions that were made within this thing. You don't go out and get this guy number one receiver. We think about T. Higgins. He was in trade rumors. Where is he at? You got Adam Thielen above the age of 30 years old. Even with a Jonathan Mingo on the team, even with a Terrace Marshall Jr. prior to the injury, I think there's a lot of things that you have to look at. DJ Chark, you bring him over from Detroit. I'm just wondering, within this process, even with Frank Reich, now I go back to Indianapolis because I think that was an ugly breakup and an ugly exit where he got out of there. And we say even where we felt like, okay, offense wasn't the best, but we still had a star running back in Jonathan Taylor. We still had a star offensive lineman in Quentin Nelson. Some of those other guys playing good as a collective unit. And we saw what they had with the quarterbacks. You go from Matt Ryan to you go to Carson Wentz and a couple of different things, even Phillip Rivers for a season. But I think with that being said, is that you lose a guy like Andrew Luck. Now you come back over to it. We stay. Even if we don't have our franchise quarterback, we have an opportunity to have a good team surrounding us. Still has Shaquille Leonard playing his best football on the defensive side of the ball. Had a Stephon Gilmore for 1 year. So I look at a couple of different things, what they had on the defensive side of the ball. And I think offensively with Frank Reich, you still have that running game. You still have just a competent enough passing game. But now we come back to the Carolina Panthers and it just hasn't been that. So I think what we're seeing from David Tepper is a level of frustration. When you make a move like this in season, now they're 1-10 right now, and there's still a lot of football left to be played in this season. But I think the move was made with such urgency because of the future of the Carolina Panthers. There's a couple of things we have to talk about. They don't own their 2024 first round pick. That's huge because if we can get a Marvin Harrison Jr., they're going to have the number one pick in the draft. If they don't even draft a quarterback because they just drafted Bryce Young, you could trade back, probably get 2 firsts, a couple of thirds, a second, if even. There's a lot of talent coming up in this draft. We talk about Joe Alt. We talk about Olu Fashanu. We talk about some of those edge rushers, the Jared Verses of the world. They could have really loaded up and paired some things around a Bryce Young, Keon Coleman. I'm looking at so many different receivers, Malik Neighbors, coming out in this draft, and they could have been with Bryce. But you're going to have to look at the free free agent route? Is it a Michael Pittman Jr.? Is it a T. Higgins? What do we do now trying to get this guy solidified? Number one, it's going to be a harder route. And I think defensively, they have a foundation. But we look at this year with the Zero Evero, they were really wiped by injuries on the defensive side of the ball and still have some guys trying to get healthy. Overall, though, you come back to it with Thomas Brown. Who's going to step up? Is it Deuce Staley? Who's getting this interim head coaching job? And how do the Carolina Panthers play? Do they play a little bit harder? Are we going to see a team that's playing better without Frank Reich as the head coach? I think we go over to Las Vegas, we see Antonio Pierce, what he's doing. Even though Josh McDaniels started the season as a head coach, we see changes being made, and it's being made rapidly. This was one of the big moves. I think it's unexpected. It's a lot of things that go into it. I know you guys are going to let me know some things down below in the comments, but I want to get this video out. Just my first reaction. What do I really think about Frank Reich being fired from the Carolina Panthers? I think change had to be made. That's obvious. That's one thing we probably all can agree on. Change had to be made, but where does the change come from? Is it a general manager? Is it somebody in the front office? Is it an owner? Is it the head coach, or maybe even the quarterback? But I saw today it was the head coach. Where do they go from here? What is the next move? How does this impact the team? And how does this impact their offseason? Let me know all those things down below in the comments. Thank you for watching. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more sports content. That's going to do it for today. And now,